Five-ish fangirls, I love you, and I'm one of the five-ish. In fact, I'm the biggest one of the five-ish. I am the Sixth Doctor Colin Baker, and I wish you all well. Have fun.
The tensions this week continue all the way to episode 375 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. And the Beatles once sang, "You can't buy me love, but you can buy Paul McCartney tickets," and that's kind of the same thing, right? Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like we do every week. The virtual table is see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Now that we're properly back together again.
Yes.
Yes.
I feel like I've been away forever.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's all right.
It happens. Life happens. That's just life.
Yes. May
May
was not a good month. We all just kind of took turns being sick all month long, and it sucked.
Yeah.
But the good news is we did take Alex to go see his first movie in the theaters, which was Sonic 2, and it was excellent, and he loved it.
Yay! Awesome.
So I was a little afraid, like okay, you're gonna be bored, or you're gonna want to wander around, and he got a little restless. But our theater has like those big kind of recliner chairs, so
nice.
It's he's got plenty of room to wiggle around and not bug anybody. But oh gosh, he loved it. And then afterward, the credits are rolling, and you're like, "What did you think, Alex?" He goes, "More Sonic."
Yeah.
So we had to come home and watch the first one.
A+ parenting right there.
Yes.
Yeah, and he even did the little sign language sign, which is you bring your fingertips together a couple times just for more. And he goes, "More Sonic."
Yep.
And I'm like, "You are an adorable child, and yes, we can go watch more Sonic."
Yes, I know what that more sign with cousins, with younger cousins, and just like, yep, okay, yep, we'll get you more. Hold on.
Let me teach you about the cartoon that we had when I was a kid.
Oh yes. I remember that one. That was like the only Sonic thing I had when I was a kid, because we had the Super Nintendo. Mom and Dad were not springing for Sega Genesis too. It's like, you got that.
Nope.
Be happy with
The battle of the consoles.
Yep. The only time I could play Sonic was when I babysat for my cousin, and we'd have to tag team. So I was like, okay.
Yeah,
we
were like
real good babysitting. You, me in front of the. We will make sure to go outside, but yeah, we can play a couple rounds of Sonic.
Yep.
Yeah, my mom and I used to take turns playing Sonic.
We never owned a Sega, so I think I only ever played the arcade game.
I had a Sega growing up.
Although now Alex, he has a Kindle Fire for kids, and there are apps where you're playing the original Sonic games, and he's like, and he'll play them more or less. Like he's got it kind of figured out. But then he'll get to a tricky part, and he'll hand it to me to figure it out, and I'm just like, oh gosh.
Here, like, Mama.
I will try. And the controls, you're on a tablet, so it's not buttons.
This is not the same as a Sega controller.
This isn't working.
Yeah.
What button am I pushing?
Yeah.
Where's the X button?
I have a Luna, and I'm still trying to figure out the controls on that thing.
Yeah.
With the free games, it's like, okay, you're supposed to do this, this, and this. It's like, this is not helping. Okay, I'm done.
Yep. Yeah.
When I have more time, and my frustration level is a little bit lower.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad everybody's feeling better.
Yes. Yes, we are. Thank goodness.
Yep. All right. Well, we don't really have a whole lot in the way of news, other than Russell T Davies just slowly trying to kill us all before Doctor Who reaches its 60th anniversary.
Yeah.
With the announcement that Neil Patrick Harris is now going to be part of the 60th anniversary special. I'm just under the assumption it's going to be a special of some sort. Shenanigans.
Yep. Someone
nothing.
suggested that possibly the toy maker. I would go for it.
That's just fan assumptions. That there's absolutely nothing that he or Neil have posted that gives any indication of who he might be playing, but the picture does kind of scream Celestial Toy Maker. So
yeah. Which I would not be opposed to.
Russell isn't too subtle. Yeah. Russell sometimes isn't very subtle.
Yeah. I mean, Celestial Toy Maker is like, that whole idea and concept is just, it's bonkers, awesome. but in a really good way. Like Big Finish has done some great stuff with that, and it's one that I'm like, I wish they would animate it or something, but because the story itself is really good. But
there better be a panda on a chair.
Yes,
that's all I'm saying. Somewhere, even if it's just hidden.
We need a panda
in a in background somewhere. There better be a panda on a chair. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
So
we don't ask much.
Yeah.
No.
Really. Yeah. But so 60th anniversary shenanigans still under production, underway. Watch this space.
And I'm sure many more announcements to come.
Oh yeah. Yes, I'm sure. We still have a lot of time between now and November of next year. So.
Yeah.
Well, when you're the guy taking over, and your first thing is next year, you're like, well, I'll just keep
that. The BBC is having its big centenary this year, right. So it's like
I'll work on my thing while all that other stuff's going on. So
So that's really it for the news. So moving on to feedback. Got some feedback from Shalane, which we're gonna skip over some of it because there are Doctor Strange spoilers in here. Try to be good. I know it's been more than a month since the movie was released, but at this point, it's like, I know there's people that have not been spoiled yet. I'd like to keep it that way. Like Chauncey, as far as I know, he's not been spoiled on anything. So he hasn't spent a lot of time on social media either, which is a blessing, I think, in his case.
It is.
So non-spoilery related feedback that Shalane mentioned. She mentions, and I still have not watched this, even though I know what dropped was the teaser for the live action Pinocchio with Tom Hanks.
Yep.
So I still have not watched it. So, but I mean, it's being directed by Robert Zemeckis, so it's in good hands.
Yeah.
So and he and Tom Hanks have worked together several times. So, and then she mentions the Queen's Jubilee, which was now a couple, the first weekend in June was the big ta-da across the pond, which I unfortunately, because I was at PopCon, I was a little distracted. So it's like by the time PopCon finally got done Sunday, I was like, okay, taking the shoes off, I'm sitting down, I'm pouring myself an adult beverage, I am watching the Platinum Party at the Palace. Dagnabbit.
Queen and Adam Lambert stole the show on that one. I mean, the musical numbers did awesome too, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
That opening was fantastic.
Yeah. So, but it was really cool to see not just Britain, but the Commonwealth come together to celebrate Her Majesty's 70th anniversary, platinum anniversary of being sovereign. So very, very awesome. And it looks like it was a lot of fun. So very cool.
from the clips I caught. It's like, oh, they're having a great time, and this is probably never going to happen again.
Yeah,
Right, exactly. Yep.
So,
yeah,
that was cool.
yeah. Then she mentions that she's been waiting to give us feedback on Doctor Strange for weeks. Sorry. I said we could do it eventually. We did. So I'm trying to find stuff that's not spoilery.
Redacted.
I'm so sorry, Shalane. But you know how this goes. You've sent us enough feedback. You know how it goes.
Level 9 clearance needed.
Yep.
Oops, you touched Lola.
Yep. Okay, she says she loved America Chavez. We know that's a spoiler. She was awesome. She's part of my group of favorite females in the MCU. I love her jacket. I want her jacket so bad. I'm sure someone on the interwebs somewhere out there can assist you with either making one for you or showing you how to make one yourself if you are so inclined.
Check Etsy, although I'm sure they're going to be a pretty penny.
Yeah.
But,
Yep. She said that the post-credit scene surprised her because of who's in it. And she says, who's next in the MC now? Robert, redact who it is. And she's like, who's next? Bryce Dallas Howard, Winona Ryder, Anne Hathaway? Just wait. It'll probably happen. Give it enough time. Eventually, all of those people will probably end up at the MCU at some point.
If cameo or not lead character of some sort.
Yeah. And redacted. So sorry, Shalane. That's about all I can mention. It's not completely spoilery. So
once you know certain people have
things that happen to characters,
we can do we can unredact the redacted.
It can be unclassified. So we'll hang on to it for later.
So, but if you listen to our episode, then you know we talked about everything. So. All right. Well, moving on to this week's main topic. I'm very excited about this.
Me too.
One, because I always love to talk about people I love, and also I'm still riding the high.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing him recently.
Uh-huh.
Weeks ago, as of tomorrow. So I'm very excited to be doing this dive into Sir Paul McCartney, who's having a big birthday coming up this Saturday as we're recording this. Saturday, the 18th of June. The man is turning 80 years old.
And he's still looking good.
No signs of slowing down. Like I said, I just saw him 2 weeks ago, and he went for over 2.5 hours. So
nice. That's Springsteen level.
Yeah. It's there's a website. I'll have to look it up because I can't remember the URL at the moment. I could put it in the show notes. There's a website that you could go to that they track like pretty much every live, every band, artist, tour out there. Cool. Yep. A lot of it's all the old stuff gets aggregated from fans who have like memories and newspaper clippings and stuff. But you can see like they track like songs, and you could look up the statistics like how many times has Metallica done Enter Sandman, in their existence. And the tour that Paul is on right now, they did the math, and he's averaging like 2 hours and 40 something minutes per show.
Wow.
So, yeah. So yeah, he is, and he does not have an opener. So that is all him. That is from the minute
Paul,
he takes the stage till the confetti flies from the ceiling and the ushers start to push you out the door. So
because I think that was the same way in '93. There was no opening act. It was just him.
He's never had an opening act in the 4 times that I've seen him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that website because I have vague memories of the set list and the scrapbook that I have of the lead up, the review of the concert, and that I know it had a playlist, but I don't know where that scrapbook is at the moment. So
yeah,
because it's got the concert tickets too.
Nice.
Yes, we saved them. Mom and Dad were just like, okay, they're going in a safe spot. You're putting those in the scrapbook. Like, yes, thank you, please. Good memories.
Yeah.
I have a tour T-shirt and I think a program because it was with the Off the Ground tour. That's when I saw him. So Linda was still around.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen him 4 times in the last. My first show was 2005. So,
nice.
But yeah, I've seen him 4 times since then. Only once has actually been in Indianapolis.
So you went traveling for the others.
I've had to travel for all the rest of them. And yeah, and every time I've seen him, it's just been, people in their seats getting all excited and then it just 2.5 plus hours of just so
singing along and your voice is gone the next morning, but it's so worth it.
Yes, absolutely. So like I said, can't buy me love, but you can buy Paul McCartney tickets, which is kind of the same thing. So, but to have Paul McCartney shows, you have to have a Paul McCartney first.
Yes, you do.
And obviously there will be some overlap, quite a bit of overlap when we kind of get to, that little band he was in during the 60s.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of that when we talked about John Lennon, so we'll try not to repeat ourselves too much. But before that, James Paul McCartney. How many people knew that Paul is actually not his first name?
I did.
I did too.
I did not. So there, I learned something.
Yeah, see, there you go. In fact, actually on his TikTok, when the kind of trend was going around of people using that song, That's Not My Name, and it'd be like, famous people like actors and stuff. It'd be like Alicia Silverstone posted like, my name's Alicia, but some people may know me as, Cher from Clueless or Batgirl or that, that sort of thing. So when Paul McCartney posted one, he's like, my name is Paul, but you may know me as James. And I'm like, I wonder how many people's mind were just blown that they did not know that his name is not Paul McCartney. It's James Paul McCartney. Why he chose to go by his middle name, I think, was maybe to help separate himself from his dad, because his dad's name was James, but he went by Jim.
That could
it was
be
probably just easier. But when you think about it, it's like, when the Beatles became a thing, it's really easy. John, Paul, George, and Ringo. It just rolls off the tongue. Could you imagine trying to do John, James, George, and Ringo?
That's a lot of
That's a lot of
yeah.
Not that he could have known that. Yeah, when he decided to start, at whatever age he decided to start going by Paul, but still, it's like, that just would not. I mean, after 50-something years, it probably would have rolled off the tongue as part of just the natural zeitgeist, but still, looking back, it's like, no, that just doesn't seem right. So yes, James Paul McCartney was born on the 18th of June, 1942. At Walton Hospital in the Walton area of Liverpool. He was born to his mother, Mary, who worked as a nurse, and his father, James, aka Jim McCartney, who actually was not there when his son was born because he was working as a volunteer firefighter because it was World War II.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yep.
There was this little thing going on. You may have heard of it.
Yep. Um. So, uh, yeah. So because of the war and the things that came with that, the family life was a little upended for a little while because all of Britain was being
Yeah. There, don't you know? There's
London
a war
was
going
being
on.
blitzed, and other parts of Britain were being, people were having to go to war, and businesses were closing, or they had to be repurposed and facilitate and manufacture things to help the war effort. Because his father had worked at a cotton mill, essentially a cotton merchant, before the war. And then when the war broke out, the place was shuttered, and his dad had to go off and find other employment, and then also did a gig as a volunteer firefighter. So yeah, so things were a little shaky there during the first few years of Paul's life. Thankfully, his mom, being a registered nurse, came in handy because that meant she was able to find really steady work and actually was kind of the family's majority breadwinner for the longest time. And after the war ended, they were finally able to settle down properly in a home in 55. Where because in 53 Paul was only one of 3 students out of 90 to pass the 11 plus exam, which got him which is their standardized exams. So he was able to attend the Liverpool Institute, and because he was attending that school, he had to take a bus from his home to said school, and it is on that bus in 1954 where he met a fellow schoolmate by the name of George Harrison. So George is actually the first. This is the first earliest connection of Beatles that we are aware of. Thereabouts. So even though George was a year younger than a year below Paul, they did become friends. So because of Mary's job as a nurse and a midwife, and because she was the main breadwinner of the house, that allowed them to move to the house in Allerton, where they lived until 1964, which obviously by then Beatlemania was a thing, and Paul had a bit more money to contribute to the household. But, kind of like with Elton John, there's no shame in living with your parents.
No.
Until you find a good career for yourself. So,
Yep.
Don't
don't knock it. Sometimes it's what you've got.
Exactly. I mean, at this point, Paul was 22, which is still fairly young, but still, even if you're there's no shame in it. Just, the next time somebody's like, oh, you're still living with your parents, it's just like, well, it worked for Elton John and Paul McCartney. So, there you go.
And then they'll be like, what?
Yeah. Unfortunately, by the time Beatlemania came around, Paul's mother was not around to see it, because she died in 1956, because of a embolism that she developed, as complications from surgery she'd had for breast cancer.
Mm.
So, but that gave something him and John Lennon to bond over, the fact that they both lost their moms young, because we know that John had lost his mother when he was 17. Paul was 14 when his mom died. So, thankfully, his father, Jim, was musically inclined. So he was a trumpet player and a pianist. They had an upright piano in their home, and actually encouraged Paul to take piano lessons. However, Paul declined because he prefers, and still does prefer, to learn by ear. And that is still the case, and the man still does not know how to read music, has never learned. So, but, I think he's done okay.
Probably just a little bit
without any formal training. So, when he was 11, his father encouraged him to audition for the Liverpool Cathedral Choir. He was not accepted. Again, kind of like some other musicians we know.
Again, I think I mentioned this when we talked about Elton John. It's like, you hear about all these musicians, like, famous rock stars and pop stars, that are like, yeah, I sucked at lessons. I didn't do, I had a music teacher who told me I was no good, or all these things. But it's like, and yet they created some amazing, memorable songs. That it's just like, you just
that are
you
still
don't know,
being played and listened to today.
Exactly. Played by the man himself, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, what if they had been accepted? Maybe they would have not gone down the career path that we know they went down.
True.
I will tell you, I took a creative writing class in college, because I was like, oh, I want to, learn how to write, or, I've got ideas, I want to write them. And all the things I learned in creative writing in college, it's like, I have to unlearn it, because it gets in the way, because you've got somebody else in your head telling you how to do it. And like, no, your advice sucks. Which, I had to figure that out.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with me, getting advice and suggestions from quote unquote experts, but sometimes you got to forge your own path.
Yes. And well, in my case, where I was doing it in college for a grade, it was like, this was a dumb idea, because you have to do it the way the professor wants it, even though it's not the way you would do it. But like you said, who knows what would have happened?
Yep.
We don't have Doctor Strange to open up the multiverse to show us, okay, what would have happened if?
Yeah. There's 14,605 possibilities.
Yep.
Infinity War was on the TV when I was at the gym earlier, so.
Yep. And it just moved into Endgame not that long ago.
Yep.
Oh, weird.
Yep. So when he was 14, Paul got a trumpet from his father for his birthday. But this little thing called rock and roll was starting to make its way around the globe. So he ended up trading it in for a acoustic guitar because he wanted to be able to sing while he was playing music. So, at first he found it difficult, which nowadays is probably less likely the case, but in the late 50s, the idea of right-handed versus left-handed may have not been as, a thing that necessarily was manufactured. Like there may have been a few places out there maybe manufactured like left-handed guitars. Nowadays it's more common to be able to find left hands instruments made specifically for people who are left-handed.
Because if memory serves, Jimi Hendrix had to turn his guitar upside down in order to play it.
Yeah, something like this. Or in Paul's case, he reversed the order of the strings.
Oh, cool. That works. Yep.
Because he saw a poster for a Slim Whitman concert, and I guess the picture had Slim Whitman, and realized that Slim Whitman was left-handed. So he just reversed order on the strings.
Nice. Hey, that works.
Yeah. So, but yeah, by then he was, being influenced by things like Little Richard and Elvis, early Elvis and things like that, going into the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
Exactly. So when he met John Lennon at the age of 15 in 1957, where by then John Lennon had actually already formed the Quarrymen. They had similar interests as far as musical taste, so Paul got invited to join as a rhythm guitarist. And then it was Paul who brought George in because they were friends. And then Stuart Sutcliffe came in to play bass. So, and then that was kind of the lineup by 1960, and then they gone through several names, including Johnny and the Moondogs, the Beatles, Beatals, the Silver Beatles, Beetles.
Yes, yep.
And then finally settled on the Beatles as we know and love it, and recruited Pete Best as the drummer. Sutcliffe obviously left in 61. Paul became the bass player, albeit reluctantly at first. Now he's known as one of the greatest bass players in the entire history of rock and roll music. And of course, we know the history of them going to Germany and all that, because we covered that when we talked about John and his history. Beatlemania, obviously. When the Beatles became the Beatles to the world, John was the cool one, George was the quiet one, Ringo was the funny one, and Paul was the cute one.
Yep. Yep.
And then obviously Pete Best left, Ringo came in as a drummer, and bada bing, bada boom, we've got the Beatles as history knows them. And he and John would go on as the McCartney-Lennon songwriting duo to write a buttload of hit songs. And then obviously as time goes on, the Beatles style change, as we've talked about. We just talked about Sgt. Pepper recently, which saw a distinct pivot in the Beatles style, from going from touring band to, well, we're not going to tour anymore, so we can do whatever the hell we want in the studio. let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And that's pretty much how it went through the end of the Beatles' career. We will be talking about Magical Mystery Tour and all the psychedelic madness that goes with that some point later this year. Because that was also released the same year as Sgt. Pepper 67. So once Brian Epstein died in August of 67, the Beatles were fairly lost, and Paul was the one that kind of stood and took a step forward and became kind of the de facto leader. So for everything, John was kind of the leader as far as the band was concerned, and then Brian, obviously, as their manager, tried to manage all of them. But as we know, John Lennon didn't necessarily like being managed. So when that void was left from Brian, Paul stepped in and kind of took over in Magical Mystery Tour, and the subsequent, like I said, psychedelic mind-bending thing that is the film that goes with it was Paul's baby. He directed it.
Yep.
He helped make it happen. Again, we will talk about that down the line. And then obviously, as we saw and discussed when we talked about the Peter Jackson documentary by what was becoming the end of the Beatles, Paul had met Linda. And that was a very serious relationship. Obviously Linda was there in at least for some of that. She ended up taking some of the pictures that were utilized on the Let It Be album cover, actually. And her daughter, which Paul subsequently adopted when he and Linda got married, being the most adorable thing running around in the studio.
Oh yes.
So but he and Linda got properly married in March of 1969, and then in August, as predicted, I think by George, it was either George or Ringo, can't remember which, that said something about how they thought Linda was pregnant. They were right, because I got married in March, and in August Mary was born. So named after Paul's mother. Obviously the late 60s also included the Paul is dead rumor, urban legend thing, which we discussed on our Sgt. Pepper episodes. We don't need to rehash that, but as like I said, as someone who's recently seen him, Paul is not dead.
No, he is not.
That is the Paul McCartney, never been replaced. Even Chauncey and I were discussing that on the drive back from Knoxville, and I was telling him about it. I was like, it was the mid 60s. The rumor is Paul supposedly died in a car crash in 66, and he was replaced by someone who had to have plastic surgery. Someone who kind of looked like him already, but just had some plastic surgery to look more like him. Is also left-handed, knows how to play the bass, piano, guitar, all the same instruments, can talk and sound exactly like Paul, knows all of Paul's backstory and his personal history.
That is a lot of trouble to go to just to
That
replace
is a
somebody.
lot of trouble to go
Yeah.
to. So
Trouble, time, and money. I don't think so.
Yeah. So
the 60s.
yeah, I know.
It's a weird time, you know?
It was. And as we know, John Lennon privately left the Beatles in fall of 69, agreed not to go public, so as to not jeopardize ongoing business negotiations. Paul was in disagreement with the other guys regarding management of the group, and publicly announced his own departure in April of 1970. He was the one that filed the suit for the band's formal dissolution. Obviously the Beatles partnership legally was officially dissolved in 1975 when John Lennon signed the papers while he was at Walt Disney World. Again, we've discussed that. Go listen to our John Lennon episode. And then go listen to Lou Mangello's episode about that. So obviously the Beatles done 1970. Paul obviously, not, as unhappy as the band was. Obviously it hurt to have the band break up. Thankfully Linda was there to support him. Goodness for Linda. Who knows what would had happened if Linda had not been there. She's the most supportive woman in the entire universe. He went and started doing solo work. So he released his first solo album, McCartney. And other than some vocals by Linda, that is pretty much a one-man album. Something that Paul has done actually several times since then, where he does all the compositions, all the instruments, and the vocals. The man is wicked talented. It's crazy. And then he did his second solo album, Ram. And by then he was starting to collaborate with some other fellow musicians. And with the addition of ex-Moody Blues guitarist Denny Lane, we now have Wings.
Yep. And man, did they put out some good stuff.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I had a friend gift me a like a Barnes and Noble gift card or something as a graduation gift when I graduated high school. That tells you. And that's when the Wings and Wingspan.
Oh yes,
that is the double disc,
the double
CD.
Yeah, that's a fantastic collection to get your feet wet.
Yes,
fantastic.
Yeah, I ended up buying that with that gift card that I got as a graduation present. So
that
was like I knew
cover.
Of Wings. Like I was a huge Beatles fan, and I knew of Wings, and I knew some of I obviously because my brother is a huge James Bond fan. I know the theme to Live and Let Die like the back of my hand.
But which is the best Bond soundtrack song.
Oh yes,
hands down. Sorry,
it is a banger. So yeah, the Wings Wingspan is his 2-disc CD, kids, CD sets. But yeah, it is a very good way to get your feet wet if you're wanting to start listening to Paul's solo / Wings stuff on there. Because some of the stuff he did with McCartney and Ram ends up getting kind of lumped together with Wings, even though technically that was pre-Wings, but it's like it's close enough.
Yep.
So, so, yeah, and obviously creating a new band literally like a year after the Beatles broke up and like Paul like
Yep.
publicly walked away was a little nerve-wracking.
Yep.
Yeah, and Paul actually said in this is a quote from a book that was printed in 2002. But Paul said, Wings were always a difficult idea. Any group having to follow the Beatles' success would have a hard job. I found myself in that very position. However, it was a choice between going on or finishing, and I love music too much to think of stopping.
Mhm.
Oh. And then also that year, Paul got a new band and a new kid.
Mhm.
As he and Linda's second daughter, Stella, was
Stella, yeah.
born, who was named after Linda's grandmother's, who has gone on to become quite the name herself in the fashion world. Stella
Yes.
McCartney, you
Mhm.
may have heard of
Oh
her.
yes.
Mhm. So then Wings went on their first tour in 1972 in front of an audience of 700 people at the University of Nottingham. They ended up doing a 10-gig tour, traveling across the UK in a van, doing shows at universities where they stayed in essentially motels and getting paid by the coins that the students would like toss in a hat for them. Like whatever you got in your
Welcome
pockets.
back to the days of the Cavern Club, Paul.
Pretty much, actually, because he said, Paul later said after the fact, he said the main thing I didn't want was to come on stage faced with a whole torment of 5 rows of press people with little pads all looking at me saying, and oh well, he's not as good as he was. So we decided to go on that university tour, which made me less nervous. By the end of that tour, I felt ready for something else. So we went to Europe, which is what exactly they did. They did a 7-week, 25-show Wings Over Europe tour, where they played just Wings and McCartney solo material, other than the cover of Long Tall Sally, which is a Little Richard song. And even then, they were not doing large venues. Most of the halls they played had capacities of fewer than 3,000 people. So obviously quite a difference than the hullabaloo of the screaming fans at Candlestick Park, where the bands, the Beatles couldn't even hear themselves playing, to 700, maybe a couple thousand university students or random gigs across Europe. So, but hey, sometimes getting back to your roots is a good thing. So yeah, I probably did kind of, a reminder
help
of like
hit the
Cavern
reset
Club
button.
and the stuff they did in Germany and the like. So and then March of 73 Wings received their first US #1 single with My Love off of their second LP, Red Rose Speedway.
Yep.
And then
I can still remember the 8-track that my dad had of that with the rose in the mouth.
Yep. And then working with Linda and former Beatles producer George Martin, they wrote the song Live and Let Die, the theme song to the James Bond film of the same name, which was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yep.
It also earned Martin a Grammy for his orchestral arrangements. It is also a regular in the Paul McCartney set list.
Yep.
And
with the pyrotechnics.
Yes, and depending on whether your show is inside or outside will determine the spectacularness or height or of of said pyro.
Yep.
I've seen him outside once. So
no, the pyrotechnics is huge.
The pyro was like, ah.
Yeah.
It was madness. Even inside. The inside, there's also to make up for the fact that you can't go as crazy with the pyro. Just know that if you have anyone who's sensitive to like flashing lights,
and the screens, yep.
Not just the screens, but like the spotlights, like
sure,
the stage lights, lasers, lots of chaos going around visually, cacophony there. I mean, it works for the song, obviously, because it gets to the fast bits and it totally matches it. But yeah, if you got anybody that's like sensitive to that sort of thing, just be aware if you take him to go see Paul, they may want to close their eyes during that bit.
Until you get to that reggae breakdown, then you know you're good.
Yeah, but then it picks up again the minute it starts getting fast again. So but yeah,
you get a little respite.
It was like Guy Fawkes night. This last show. Which, considering at least on this tour, it starts. When he starts the song on the screen is like this big, huge. Yeah, I'm sure they're using like 4K, so super nice like 3D rendering of Parliament that proceeds to blow up. So it like literally was Guy Fawkes, or at least what Guy Fawkes wanted to happen but never succeeded.
Right. Eat your heart out X number of years later.
Yeah, but it was like all the pyro and everything, and lights were flashing, and there were lasers, and it was just crazy. And I'm like, I was like, I wonder how many people in this audience at the 5th of November reference is just going right over their head because we're all Americans.
Over their heads. But for those of us American Anglophiles, we know.
None. Okay. Chauncey's like, I've seen V for Vendetta. I'm like, yes, because you're cultured. But yeah, that's always a banger in live shows. And that and Hey Jude, just those two songs together are worth the price of admission to see him live.
Yep. And the Rare Occasion Band on the Run. That one's always
no, that one's not that rare either.
Yeah.
That one is a banger too. Like those three together, like he could just do those three and then the rest of the show could be like reading me the phone book and I would be perfectly happy. I'd be like, this is every penny I spent to have this experience is well spent. So obviously that wasn't the case then. It is now. Because it wasn't until quite a bit later that actually he started putting Beatles songs back into the set list.
Well, you have to remember that was when he and Michael were on the outs and Michael bought the catalog and he had to pay Michael to use said songs.
That was not until the 80s.
Right, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So, but before that, because they did Band on the Run was released in 1973, which was their first of 7 platinum Wings LPs, which I love that album.
Oh yeah,
I love that album. If you've never taken a good close look at the album art, all the images shot by Linda, of course, or with Linda's help because she's in it. So obviously she can't shoot the image and be in it at the same time. But Linda overseeing the photo shoot, and other than Paul and Linda, most of the other people, maybe not necessarily recognizable just by their face, except for one particular person. I won't tell you who it is. Let's just say there's a very, very recognizable, very prestigious actor who is in that group.
Yep.
On the Band on the Run cover.
Yep. And I love how it looks like they're trying to do a prison
Escaping
break
from jail.
and then they get through jail and the,
yes.
and reading the story of all the trouble they had to go through to get that album done. Holy crap. Next time, just stay stateside or UK based. Don't be going to a different country to record and not good.
Well,
yeah, I mean, different area, different vibe helps creative juices. Yes, I know, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
what could go wrong went wrong, but suffice it to say, we made it out and we have the album.
Yeah. We can talk about that when that particular album actually has its 50th anniversary next year. So,
holy cow, it's turning that. Oh, okay,
73.
Yay!
Yep.
And I can't believe. Ooh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's 6 years from when I was born. Ooh, boy, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perspective.
We're all getting old.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Wings went on a tear with albums like Venus and Mars and Wings at the Speed of Sound, and then they did a 14-month Wings Over the World tour. And it's at that point in 75 with that tour that Paul started folding in Beatles songs. With songs like I've Just Seen a Face, Yesterday, Blackbird, Lady Madonna, and The Long and Winding Road.
Yep.
Yeah. Several of those still in rotation. He did do Blackbird and Lady Madonna, the most recent show I was at. And let's see, in 77, he and Linda had their third child, a son this time named James. And then that later that year in November, they released the song Mull of Kintyre, which is very divisive depending on who you ask. But it's actually become one of the best-selling singles in UK chart history. No, and apparently is one of those songs that Paul only does when he's in Ireland, I think, or Scotland, something like that. It's one of those songs where he only does it's certain circumstances. So Scotland, mostly Scotland. Although he did play it at the O2 Arena, which is in London, obviously. But again, special occasion. Let's see. So end of the 70s saw the release of London Town, Back to the Egg, which is such a weird album title, but whatever. And then in 1980, Paul released another solo album, in this case, McCartney 2. It's like the first one, he composed and performed it all by his lonesome, all by himself, because he's a big boy. And by then, Wings dissolved by April of 81. So they kind of reached the end of the road there, and it was back to being a solo artist for the rest of his life, actually.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
He has teamed up with a group called the Firemen.
Yes.
That he has appeared on, he's done a couple albums with. But yeah, for the most part, he's been essentially a solo artist ever since. 80s, obviously the 80s did not start off well, both with the dissolution of Wings and the death of John Lennon.
Right.
Paul made some interesting musical choices, including Ebony and Ivory with Stevie Wonder. It's a thing that happened. Let's just leave it at that.
It was.
I get what they were trying to do.
Use
the piano keyboard as a metaphor for the human race. It's a thing.
Pipes apiece is a little bit better at getting the point across.
Yeah, a little bit. And then he ended up doing 2 songs with Michael Jackson. The Girl Is Mine, which appears on the Thriller album. And then they did Say, Say, Say. Which was one of Paul's, what went into Paul's personal catalog of work. The Girl Is Mine. Not bad.
Nope. Interesting.
I think Brandy and Monica did it better.
Yeah.
The Boy Is Mine.
And
so
you
Monica,
could say there's a
I know it's Brandy. I'm pretty sure it's Monica.
Yeah. Monica and Brandy. Yeah.
Yeah. The Boy Is Mine. A decade or so later.
Yeah. And you could also kind of say there's a sequel that's better. You Want Her Too from the Flowers in the Dirt album with Elvis Costello is probably a better follow-up to The Girl Is Mine.
Yeah, you got 2 artists that are, in song form, like fighting over the same love interest. Like it's been done.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, and it's somewhere in there. There was a possibility that maybe he and Michael Jackson could have worked together again beyond those 2, but somewhere in there, Michael did Paul dirty.
Yeah, because there was one more song that Michael did background vocals on for Pipes Apiece. I think like This Is the Man, and I think that was it.
Yeah. So the Beatles catalog was going up for sale.
Yep. Michael warned Paul, I'm gonna buy that catalog.
Well, Paul knew.
According to Paul.
Everybody knew.
Yep.
A lot of people were like, well, obviously, if it's going to go up for sale, like, one of the Beatles should probably buy it.
Or at least have first dibs at it.
At least have first dibs at it.
Just saying. Yeah.
Paul really wanted to buy it, did not necessarily have that kind of cash laying around, but was actively working on trying to get the money together. Whether that was a combination of just his money or teaming up with George and Ringo so that they could like equally have it, so it still belonged to the
split 3 ways
Beatles. Whatever. It just so happened that he and Michael were having dinner and they were talking about musicians' rights to their music, because that's even now a thing now, like we've seen with like Taylor Swift,
right?
Who, she was young when she started her career, and unfortunately big bad record companies and managers and legal people aren't necessarily the nicest when they're going to write contracts. This even happened to the Beatles, which is why they founded Apple Records, because they realized they weren't getting the royalties that were due to them for some of the early stuff, because the fine print of the contracts they wrote said, no, we're going to give all the money to the record company. They're going to have the rights to everything, and they can do whatever the hell they want with it. Like I said, even now, Taylor Swift is struggling because she lost the rights to all of her early stuff because of bad contracts.
This is
she didn't know any better, so she's essentially had to re-record and re-release her early catalog so that she can still have some version of those songs that belongs to her.
Yeah, this is unfortunately standard operating procedure in any industry that publishes, whether it's music or book publishing, or even movies to an extent, is that when you have these new up and coming and they're really excited and bright-eyed and like, oh, I'm gonna be published and all stuff, so like they count on you, like just saying, oh, I just want to be published, and I don't, they count on you not reading your contract, the contract that you're signing. So this just have this be a warning, and I've heard of it from authors and things like that. Get yourself a good contract lawyer before you sign anything. If you're published, if you're signing a contract with any kind of publisher, because they'll sneak stuff in there, and then you will have signed away all your work and all your things. And there's like the Beatles, they have learned, there's been people throughout the years that have learned this the hard way. So don't make this their same mistake. Learn from their experiences, or just publish it yourself, because there's so many ways to do it without that pesky middleman.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my PSA of that. But anyway, continue.
No, as Jared's a published author. He I'm sure you've seen it at least from the sidelines with what Jared's had to go through to get his stuff published.
Yeah, well, no, like when we were first starting it, now it's just kind of, he knows what to do and it's routine. But when he was, getting set up on Amazon, and you go through, I mean, Amazon it's not quite the same thing, but I mean, we know people who, they're like, oh, when do I get an agent? And we're all like, never. Seriously, because you know what, maybe he could be making a lot more money with an agent and an editor and a publisher, with that big marketing machine behind it. But they take so much money, they change your work because they want to suit it for their audience, and it's just like it's more worth it to publish it yourself. And we lived in a time where the means are there. I mean, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, that wasn't as easy of an option, but now it's like, I mean, even music, you can put it up on iTunes yourself and sell it directly, and you get to keep all the money. Well, okay, iTunes probably keeps a cut because Amazon keeps a cut of book money, but it's not as much as an editor or a publisher would take. And it's not quit your job money, but hey, we put a down payment on a house, so with a lot of that money. So I forgot to tell you. I'll tell you guys, we're closing on a house.
Bury the lead, but yay!
Sorry. Thanks. It's been a while, but that's my example of, hey, we saved money and we published it ourselves. So indie publishing of any stripe is totally worth it, especially since you maintain control over your thing. But anyway, so any aspiring creator of any type, keep as much control of your work as you can. And like I said, we have the tools these days to make that happen, so you don't have to be beholden to any middleman, because they're actually kind of useless.
And they don't have your best interest at heart, even though they say they do.
No, they do not. They will drop you like a hot potato the minute it suits them. Just a friendly
words
PSA.
of Snoop Dogg, drop it like it's hot.
Yes. So you know, you gotta feel for the Beatles and any other artist from way back when they signed that contract and they're like, "Ooh, yay, we're getting a record deal," and it's not what it seemed.
Right. Or trying to get out of said record contract to get to a better record company for a better deal, and it's like,
right.
Yeah. And then years later have someone who thought was your friend go and outbid you for the rights to your own body of work. Ended the McCartney Jackson relationship, full stop.
Yep.
And then when Michael Jackson
You
died
undid to me,
years
sir.
ago, so when Michael Jackson died with a lot of debt, Sony got everything, and then was like, we own it now, we can do whatever the hell we want with it. So then you start hearing Beatles songs and things like shoe and car commercials.
Right. It's just like, okay, Sony, you don't think you would like, hey, Paul.
So Sony has their own
problems. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. As we've seen in the last decade or so, Sony has some very questionable judgment.
Sony has not exactly covered themselves in glory. Let's leave it at that.
So Paul actually sued Sony back in the 2010s because not for everything. It was the publishing rights to 267 of the band's songs. It shows you how big the Beatles catalog is. It's like, it's not the entire catalog, it's just 267. It's all this,
But still, that's a decent sized chunk.
Yeah, because Michael Jackson died, his estate needed to pay off his debts, so they just sold stuff for pennies on the dollar, and Sony's like, hey, we'll take that Beatles catalog, yes please, thank you, here's $5. And Michael Jackson's estate was like, thank you. I know they spent more than that, but that's what it seems like sometimes. So Paul ended up filing suit under a US 1976 Copyright Act that actually other artists like Prince, Billy Joel, and Blondie have had to use to try to get control. That just shows you just how many big name artists have been screwed over by record companies. They don't have the rights to their own stuff. So anything composed between September 62 and June 71 it's supposed to become eligible for copyright termination in the US after 56 years. Now, Duran Duran tried something similar in the UK and lost. Not long before Paul did this, which is why Paul filed in the US, not the UK. Hoping that because it was in the US that the precedent that got set by Duran Duran losing would not affect him. Right. So, because things like Love Me Do could revert to Paul at the time when he filed the suit in 2018. Others, including like Come Together and Get Back, would not become available until 2025, which obviously now is only 3 years away, but still the man is going to be 80 soon. So
right.
So he started getting in contact with Sony in 2008, and his lawyers have repeatedly asked Sony to acknowledge his rights to terminate the copyright, and Sony's just been like, yeah, so hence the lawsuit. So he wants he's sued for to be able to reclaim his songs as well as Sony to cover the legal fees. And Sony said at the time of the filing said that they had the highest respect for Sir Paul McCartney, with whom we have enjoyed a long and mutually rewarding relationship. We respect to the treasured Lennon and McCartney song catalog. And then they added, we have collaborated closely with both Sir Paul and the late John Lennon's estate for decades to protect, preserve, and promote the catalog's long-term value.
I'm calling BS on that one.
Well, yeah, obviously the catalog that is the Beatles, especially Lennon and McCartney, because it's not, obviously the entire Beatles catalog is not solely Lennon and McCartney. George does have credit on some things. Ringo does too. Some stuff is just the Beatles, especially the stuff towards the end. So yeah, obviously the long-term value is quite high. I would almost say that almost on a maybe not literal level, but kind of on a metaphorical level, I would say it's almost priceless.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I
that's
agree.
Beside the point. It's not just the monetary value of the catalog. He's still alive.
Right.
And he has not had the rights to
intellectual
these
property. It's his intellectual property.
It's
he came up with the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, some of this stuff he wrote even before the Beatles became a thing. Like when we talked about Sgt. Pepper, like he started writing what would become When I'm 64 back when he was like 16. So before the Beatles were the Beatles. So the stuff that he and John wrote that says either it says McCartney and Lennon, or even the stuff that he got sole credit on. Some of this stuff he wrote, now we're looking at, I mean, what the Beatles did their first the Ed Sullivan Show in what, 64, 65, something like that. So it's been almost it's been almost 60 years since Beatlemania became what it was, and he and John started this songwriting behemoth that it is. I mean, it's literally his livelihood. He was in his teens. He was in his early 20s when he wrote this stuff. The man's getting ready to turn 80. He and Ringo and John and George's estates should have control of the stuff that those four guys wrote. And should have
and
say
who gets to use it and where.
Who gets to use it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is like, it's the way record companies and this whole business kind of just has operated. It blows, and honestly, they just don't care. They 100% like, as long as they can, slap it on a car commercial or whatever and get a few bucks out of it, then that's what they're gonna do. And the sentiment behind it, or even the value it would be to their to them and their families, it's like, who cares? It's like, I'm gonna do it. And that's unfortunately, that's just kind of, I don't want to sound flippant about it and be like, well, that's just how it is, tough turtles, but it kind of is. And it's really unfortunate that, I mean, you think about all these artists, creators who they have these ideas and they have these dreams, and they just want they want to get it out there. And these companies, these corrupt, or whatever, these people, they're like, oh, we're gonna write the contract to benefit us, and who cares about this person who's making a product that is going to make us rich. I mean, you want to, kids say like, oh, I want to be an actor, I want to be a musician, I want to be all these things. Actually, if you, it's kind of sad to say, it's like, no, you probably want to be the one writing the contracts, because they're the ones that get all the money. And they're kind of sleazy about it, or really sleazy about it.
Sleazy.
But
I mean, whenever,
yeah.
I mean, I can also play devil's advocate that, like, when a record company signs an artist, you don't know that they're necessarily going to be
right.
successful and therefore make them any money. They could be they could end up being Milli Vanilli,
Right. One hit wonders.
Yeah.
And One Hit Wonder didn't even actually sing their own songs.
That too, yeah.
They had to give back their Grammy award because it turns out they're frauds.
Yeah.
So it's like, if an artist turns out to be a bust, at least they've got the music and maybe they can reuse that music down the road to something that actually does make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Which, when you can't tell the future, that's understandable. We're talking 50, 60 years later. Give up the ghost already.
Right.
It's like
yeah, it gets, I mean,
yeah,
if the okay, I sound like I'm painting all publishers or whatever with this broad brush. There are publishers and record labels that are probably like, oh yeah, we want you to have control over your work and we will market it, and there's a mutually beneficial thing to it. But with these really big ones that you hear about, the Beatles and the and all these other things that we talk about, it's just some of these really big record labels are just, we just want the stuff, we just want the things. And it seems
Really
like
cheat them in house, school of business.
Yes, pretty much. And it seems like I'm saying this purposely. It seems like the bigger the publisher or the label or whatever it is, the more that they just want to consume artist product. We'll put it out there, get the money, and you belong to us. You're part of the machine, and anything you create is ours. And there are some medium-sized to smaller presses that are like, yeah, we're doing this as a mutually beneficial thing. And then there's people who do it independently on their own, which is just fine. It's just, whenever you are signing any kind of contract, you can have a lawyer look it over for you for you get I mean, it doesn't have to break the bank. You can find one that's fairly reasonable with their fees, and you don't have to have them represent you. You just need someone to be like, here, look this over, help me understand it, and they will. And then if there's anything that looks sketchy in there, you don't sign it. It's like I said, learn from the mistakes that some of these big names have made, and you'll and don't go down that road if you can help it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, it's also not like, he's, Paul and Ringo are unable to, the songs are completely cut off from them. Obviously, you go see Ringo in concert, you're going to hear things like Yellow Submarine and With a Little Help from My Friends.
Oh, yeah.
Paul can do whatever songs out of the Beatles catalog, even the ones that, he may have co-wrote, but didn't necessarily sing the lead on, which, I think is kind of fun. The show I just saw a couple weeks ago, sort of speculated about, which songs from Sgt. Pepper, he might do. He did Bing for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. That's not even a song he sings. That's John.
No, that's John. Yeah.
Yeah. And, there's it's got to be 15, almost 20 years. Probably not 20 years, but it's more than a decade. So, 15-ish years run. There's a Beatles Cirque du Soleil show that obviously uses songs from the catalog that had the complete backing of both Paul, Ringo, John, and George's estates. So they had to agree to let Cirque du Soleil use the music for that, along
and
with
approve
whoever
the
owned the
mashups.
rights. Yeah, they had to have approval of anything of that sort of thing. So it's not like they're completely cut off from it, but it's like if they're able to, if they're freely able to use it, then just let them have it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a muddle for sure.
Yeah. Well, either way, rant.
Yeah, off soapboxes.
The suit worked, I guess, ish, because they did reach a settlement. We have no idea what it is because settlements are always under an NDA. But yeah, he and Sony ended up reaching a settlement out of court that we will never know fully what it was, but it must have been good enough for Paul and his lawyers. So, but yeah, obviously I'm biased. Down with Sony with, I'm just down with Sony for a lot of things. So
I think we all are. So
yeah,
join club.
I mean, they did great with Ghostbusters and Spider-Man, and it's kind of been it hasn't been quite so much ever since then. But but that's the movie division.
Yeah.
The music and the video games, kind of a different arm.
Yeah, but it's still all under
different
the same.
I know.
Still, yeah.
Once in a while, a diamond comes out of the turd, which I don't know how that works, but
yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to Sir Paul.
Yes,
please.
Oh, back to the 80s where things were weird because it was the 80s. So 84 is when Paul did Give My Regards to Broad Street, which is a musical feature film that he wrote and produced that stars him, Linda, among other things, and Ringo.
Yes, it's interesting to say the least. I do have a DVD copy of it.
I do too.
It's interesting.
It is.
And FYI, there might be a review with Flicks from Friends coming in the works because someone might have requested it.
Yeah.
So
I am very interested to hear that.
Yes, because I was like, yes. It instantly came to mind when you were sharing your enjoyment of the concert, and we were all, I was like, I know what I'm going to ask for.
Yeah. Oh. It's let's just say the plot isn't the major part of it. It's the soundtrack.
Yes.
You're there for the music, and the plot just gives you just something to look at in between musical numbers.
Yep. Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't go over very well. Roger Ebert gave it 1 star and said you can safely skip the movie and proceed directly to the soundtrack. I mean, he's not wrong, but
no,
it is one of those where it's, you got to see it at least once. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. He did more albums, including Flowers in the Dirt, which was a collaborative effort with Elvis Costello.
Yes.
And in 89, they launched the Paul McCartney World Tour, his first tour in over a decade, which during that tour, he performed for the largest paying stadium audience in history. I think up to that point. I'm sure that record has probably been broken since then with bigger and bigger stadiums being built, but at least at the time, April of 1990, where he played for 184,000 people in Rio de Janeiro.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah. And then in the early 90s is when we saw Paul start dipping his toe in the orchestral / classical musical
Yep.
sphere, something he has done several times. His first foray, again, didn't go over too well as far as critics were concerned, but it's something he wanted to try his hand at, so you can't blame him, and everybody's got to start somewhere. Even Paul McCartney at this point, early 90s, he's been at it for over 30 years. Even then, sometimes you gotta try something new.
Yep.
So
flex those creative muscles.
Yeah. So yeah, he wrote Liverpool
Oratorium.
Oratorio.
Yeah, oratorio. Yeah.
With the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Society, which sounds very pompous. So really, what do the critics know? He did MTV Unplugged.
Oh, that is a fantastic album.
It's called Unplugged, the official bootleg.
Bootleg, yes. Because those were hard to find, because my dad got a limited edition CD, which I still have, and I have a limited edition cassette tape of that floating around somewhere still.
Nice.
Yes. So if you haven't listened to it, it's worth the listen to hear those stuff's acoustic, and him getting so excited that he accidentally goofs up the opening of We Can Work It Out and has to start all over again. And the crowd got a kick out of it. It's just like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. Well, even now, Paul will joke about doing, these live shows, and people have signs out in the audience. And even now, he's all like, I'll be doing a song, like We Can Work It Out or something. And it's like, don't read the signs, you'll screw up the lyrics.
Yep. Blinders on.
Yes. He's like, I appreciate the love, but I enjoy reading the signs when I'm not singing. But while I'm singing, it's like, don't look at the signs, don't read the words.
Yep.
Especially when some of the signs say silly things. Like, there was, let's see, somebody had a sign that said, "Will you sign my arm?" Which, not that weird. And then there was another sign that says, "Will you sign my butt?" Which Paul then proceeded to respond, "Well, let me see, and I'll decide from there. Let me see it, and I'll or let me have a look at it." Yeah.
At least he's got a cheeky sense of humor.
Yes.
He still has
it. So. And then he took a 4-year break so that he could work with George, Ringo, and George Martin on the Beatles anthology project.
Yep.
Which is really cool.
Yes. Very cool.
Yeah. It's also during that time period is when he was presented with an honorary fellowship of the Royal College of Music by Prince Charles, which his response was kind of amazing for somebody who doesn't read a note of music. And then late 90s, back in the studio released the album Flaming Pie, which Ringo actually appears on the song Beautiful Night. On the drums and backing vocals. He did another classical work that this time topped the UK and US classical charts. He did another Fireman album. And to round out the 90s, he released Run Devil Run, which is mostly covers, but there are 3 McCartney originals on there. It's something he had wanted to do for quite a while, just hadn't got around to it. He ended up recording it in 1 week.
Wow. And another good cover album, it's called the Russian album, which has a whole bunch of older covers, which is really cool.
That was originally released in Russia only.
Russia, right. Yeah. That was another limited edition. Grab it while it's hot.
So if you were in Russia that time,
thank heavens for Spotify now.
And you got your hands on one, hold on to it.
Right. Or if you knew somebody who, or like, call the exclusive company, which is no longer sadly in existence. It's like, hey, did you happen to get it? Okay, we'll be down there.
This was not something you could get. This is not something you could get from one of those advertisements in like the People magazine. Get 15 CDs for a penny. Yeah.
No, this is where you had to know people at local record stores. And can I take a look at the catalog that you order from? Okay, yeah. I'd like to prepay for that, please.
Although Paul was not the first Beatle to break the Iron Curtain.
Ooh,
it was Ringo.
Oh, cool.
If I'm remembering my history correctly, I say things and then I question myself. Yeah.
That sounds right, because George was more the Bangladesh, India.
Yes, and John was a homeboy being daddy daycare.
Right. Well, and then his troubles with Nixon and the FBI notwithstanding, he really
he's like, I'm not going to leave the U.S. They won't let me back in.
Right.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, the 90s did not end well for Paul because Linda unfortunately died in 1998 of cancer.
Right.
So there was a benefit concert for Linda the year after she died, which Paul did do an unannounced performance at. That was at the Royal Albert Hall in London. It was organized by a couple of her close friends. And then he continued to work on classical type music. So, but yeah, he and Linda had been married for 29 years when she died. So, but it was Linda actually who pushed him to finally do Run Devil Run. So,
cool.
Like, Linda's like, dying of cancer, and she's like, go record that album you've been talking about for years, you procrastinator.
do me a favor for your own sanity. Go record this, please. I'll be fine.
Like, you're driving me nuts. Go record the album.
Yes.
I assume is how it went.
Yes, yeah.
2000s, and we're still not done. He let's see, so 2000, he released an electronica album called Liverpool Sound Collage,
Okay, that one missed my radar. So
Yeah, with
I have no
with
comment.
super furry animals and youth. He
Okay,
contributed,
probably not for me then.
Yeah. And then obviously 2001, the world all over changed quite a bit with the September 11th attacks. Paul was at JFK on the tarmac. He saw it happen.
Yep.
I mean, obviously along with a lot of other people, but
but not just on TV.
Yeah, he was there in the city with a no TV required.
Right.
And he jumped right in to help organize the concert for New York City.
Right, and that's where we got Freedom.
Mm-hmm. And then 2002, he did Freedom as a pre-Super Bowl performance. Because this obviously would be the first Super Bowl since the terrorist attacks. He did that with his new band, which includes Rusty Anderson and Brian Ray, who are both guitarists, Paul Wickens, who's keyboardist, and Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums. And they have been his band ever since.
Drums.
Abe is hilarious.
Oh, yes. And Wicks has been with him for some time.
But those,
so it's nice to still see him around.
5, with Paul, have been the same band, touring together since 2002. So they have been touring together as a band for 20 years. So every show that I've seen,
like that long.
It's been those guys. So, and occasionally they will have like if they need like brass or whatever, they will have people come in for that sort of thing. But it's Paul plus those 4 guys for the past 20 years. And don't seem to
no signs of slowing down.
No signs of stopping with that particular grouping. So, as entertaining as Paul is, give Abe an opportunity.
Yeah. I hate to say it, when I'm watching that lineup in particular, okay, yes, I'm kind of focusing on Paul, but my eyes are on Abe the whole time. He is so into it. I
wish I had noticed sooner, because of course my eyes are going to be on Paul most of the time, 99.9% of the time. But I wish I'd been paying attention to Abe sooner, because during this last show they did a small mini set of sort of acoustic where Paul was on ukulele.
Oh, cool.
And they did In Spite of All the Danger, which is the first song that the Quarrymen ever recorded.
Yes. Yep.
And then they did his song Dance Tonight, which was a single released from Memory Almost Full. And Abe was dancing. He had like a little like single drum and like cymbal, and was just standing there, with a couple drumsticks. But he was also dancing the entire time. And it wasn't until he started doing the lawn sprinkler that I realized what he was doing. And by then the song was pretty much over. So I really hope someone out there got like Abe's full like interpretive dance performance of Dance Tonight from the Knoxville show. Please send it to me.
I want to see
I
it
need
too.
to see it. He was doing the Macarena. He was doing the lawn sprinkle. I don't know what else he was doing before I noticed. It was so funny.
Did Paul do something on the ukulele or no?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
Or not was it the ukulele? The mandolin. That's what he was doing. This was all on mandolin. because he had gotten himself a left-handed mandolin, either before or while he was in the process of recording Memory Almost Full, and he had gone into London to go to his business office for something, and he had some time to kill, and there's a music shop that he likes to pop into that's in the neighborhood. So he popped in, and the guy that owns the place obviously at this point is like, oh, there's Paul McCartney. Wonder what he's gonna buy today. And Paul was like, hey, if you got anything interesting, and the guy that owns the place was like, actually, I have a left-handed mandolin. And Paul was like, cool, like I said, because nowadays left-handed, more commonplace. People are actually going to properly manufacture instead of having to either one, turn a guitar upside down like poor Jimi Hendrix had to, or reverse the strings like Paul had to do for the longest time. So Paul was like, cool. He bought the left-handed mandolin, ended up taking it home, was playing with it, and then his youngest daughter, because by this point he was married to Heather Mills,
right,
and they had a daughter together, Beatrice. And he was playing with it, and Beatrice came in and she was dancing because he was just kind of playing around with this brand new left-handed mandolin that he bought, and he thought it was really cute the way she was dancing, and that's where Dance Tonight came from, was watching his daughter dance while he played, and the mandolin plays a major part in the music of that particular song. He does play the ukulele too, that he learned from George.
Right. Yep.
Because George learned how to play the ukulele, and then when he and George would hang out, George eventually taught him how to play the ukulele, and he does something while playing the ukulele in tribute to George. So yeah, he always does a tribute to George and John, at least all the times that I've seen him in the last 15-ish years. And yeah, he does something on the ukulele because George is the one that taught him how to play the ukulele, so then he does something. And then the song he wrote for John, If You Were Here Today, which appears on,
I think, Flaming Pie.
I
could be
don't
wrong.
think so.
Okay.
It might have been Off the Ground.
Yes. Now that you mention it, I think it probably was Off the Ground.
Yeah.
I was thinking of another slow song off of Flaming Pie that could have kind of fit the same thing, like it was him and John having a conversation.
Yeah.
An imaginary conversation sort of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, he'll do If You Were Here Today in tribute to John. So, and then he still plays either and or Maybe I'm Amazed, or and now I'm completely blanking on My Love. There we go. I was like, I would get it eventually. My Love.
I was thinking top 2 songs for Linda.
For Linda. Yeah, for Linda.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah. So that's the early 2000s. Like I said, he married Heather Mills. And was also they did the Concert for George.
Yep.
Which Paul participated in. Like I said, he did perform Freedom for a pregame performance for Super Bowl in 2002. He'd end up doing the halftime show in 2005. They really should invite him back.
Yes, hint, hint, hint. Classic rock acts are the way to go.
Yes.
Please.
Although I'm also still holding out for Weird Al to do the Super Bowl halftime show.
That would be fantastic too.
It would be so weird. But
Why not
awesome.
both?
Yes.
Why not both? ¿Por qué no los dos?
Yeah. Paul is one of the few artists that have turned Weird Al down.
You're
There's
kidding.
like a handful of artists that have actually turned Weird Al down because Weird Al always asks permission, even though he doesn't need to, because he's doing parodies under copyright that's protected. So he doesn't actually need permission, but because of the guy that he is, he always likes to ask permission. And he went to Paul McCartney at one point and asked permission to do a parody of Live and Let Die called Chicken Pot Pie.
Oh,
Paul turned him down because Paul's a vegetarian.
Oh, that's true. But I could
now Weird Al is a vegetarian. I kind of hear it in my. So they're both vegetarians now, so I guess it evens out. But yeah, Paul is one of the few artists that have actually turned him down. So, and it wasn't because it was like he was going to be really offended. It was just on moral things. Like, I'm a vegetarian. Let's not promote eating chicken. So, like when he was on, it was Jimmy Fallon at some point, and because Paul talks about when he came up with the idea for Yesterday. He dreamt it, the music for it, woke up quickly, used a home recorder, because again, he doesn't read or write music, so recorded himself. Didn't have lyrics, obviously, so he was doing things like sexy legs and like scrambled eggs. So
I think Scrambled Eggs was the working title at one time.
Yes, it was. So when he did Jimmy Fallon, I don't know what year it was, and they took the scrambled eggs and ran with it. So and started singing about other food. And at one point, I think like Jimmy Fallon was like chicken wings, and Paul's like, no, I'm vegetarian. So he's like tofu wing. so yeah. Vegetarian, not vegan. So eggs are fine.
Yep.
He did Live 8 in 2005. He did another classical album, and another Fireman album, and then obviously we had the EMI released the Beatles reissued the Beatles catalog after 4-year digitally remastering effort, which again, when we talked about Sgt. Pepper, big mistake. Well, maybe not necessarily the remastering, it's releasing this stuff in stereo. That was a mistake.
That was,
and then obviously there were issues with Let It Be. On whether it should be the Let It Be Naked or the full-on like orchestra, interface orchestra, or somewhere in the middle, like it was originally released.
Good old Phil Spector, Wall of Sound.
Listen to the Beatles catalog in mono. I cannot say it enough times.
Amen.
Post Beatles stuff is fine. Wings, all his solo stuff, it's done in stereo because stereo was a thing by the 70s. That's fine. But the Beatles catalog, it's supposed to be listened to in mono. They also released the Beatles Rock Band. So if you're a fan of the Rock Band video game series, there's the Beatles version. Obviously he did during somewhere in that period he and Heather divorced. And he would go on to do things like 2 sold-out concerts at the New Yankee Stadium, and he was commissioned by the New York City Ballet and did his first score for dance. And then in 2011, he married Nancy, who he's still married to now. He did another kind of cover album called Kisses on the Bottom, which is a collection of love song standards, although there is an original on there, again, called My Valentine, which is a beautiful song. He wrote that for Nancy, which the poor lady. Okay, so he did My Valentine because Nancy was actually there at the show that I was at.
Oh, cool.
He's like, Nancy's with us, and I was like, well, yeah, in one of those boxes that has a door on them, with armed security, I'm sure, standing by the door. She was probably there with like the stadium owner or something, I'm sure. Although it's on the university, so who knows? Maybe she's there with the university president. I don't know. I'm sure she was in that box with somebody important. But for most of Paul's songs that he does, it tends to just be like, graphics packages, like not necessarily stock. I'm sure the stuff's custom done for him, but just kind of visually interesting type stuff. That are just give you like color and movement and stuff behind him and the band while they're performing. Occasionally he will use if there's a music video for something, sometimes he will use the music video footage. He does that for My Valentine. If you don't know, if you haven't seen the video, he's not in it. It is black and white, split screen, I believe, for pretty much most of it, of two people doing sign language of the lyrics of the song. It just so happens those two people are Natalie Portman and Johnny Depp.
You're kidding. Wow.
No.
Cool.
So he's like, I wrote the song for my wife Nancy. Starts to do it, the video comes up, and the lady behind me is very confused, which we're a little bit into the show at this point. I'm pretty sure she had probably gone to the bar at least once.
Gotcha.
Because as the show went on, she got more and more enthusiastic, which I'm pretty sure was supported by some adult beverages, which is fine. She was real nice about it. She was just very enthusiastic, which, I didn't need any adult beverages to help with my enthusiasm. I probably would have got just as annoying, actually. But she was very confused because she's like, who's that? Is that? And I was like, I turned around and I was like, it is Johnny Depp. And she's like, yeah, I know that, but who it's like, and that's Natalie Portman. And she's like, I was like, it's the music video to the song. She's like, oh, okay. I was like, he and Johnny Depp are really good friends. So,
well, did Paul make a cameo appearance in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean
the last
movies,
Pirates movie? Yes,
with Keith Richards. Yeah,
no, Keith Richards is in the one before that.
For that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Keith Richards is in the one before that. Paul is in the last one. It's very weird, but whatever. The man is up for anything, seriously.
Right.
But yeah, no, he and Johnny Depp are really good friends. Johnny actually appears in a couple of Paul's music videos, and so does Natalie Portman, actually. Natalie Portman, I believe, is in the music video for Dance Tonight, as well. So,
there you go.
When you're Paul McCartney, you're friends with everybody.
Or if Paul McCartney calls you and asks you, you say yes.
Yeah.
End of story.
That too. Actually, the video for Queenie Eye, Johnny's in. There's a lot of famous faces actually in that one, so you can go watch that after you're done listening to this. So, but yeah, he and Johnny Depp are really good friends. So, like some people I saw, like after, I don't know, just showing Orlando or something, and somebody posted a picture of during the performance of that song, and they're like, is Paul McCartney showing support for Johnny Depp? And I'm like, well, I mean, he's probably supporting his friend, but it's the music video that music video was 10 years old. So,
right.
Yeah.
And it's it's beautiful. It's very simple. Like I said, it's black and white. It's just the two of them sitting there, although Johnny Depp starts playing a guitar at some point. But it's it's a beautiful song. It's just very lovely and kind of stripped down. So it's like, yeah, in a way he is, but it's also just the music video for that particular song.
Don't read too much into it.
Yeah. But he and Johnny Depp are really good friends. So so that song appears on Kisses on the Bottom. And then obviously 2012 was the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. So the concert for that, Paul performed at. Obviously, he did not perform at this year's Jubilee concert because he's on tour. He does have a little video message that he sends to the Queen that gets shown during the Platinum Party. So, and then he also did the closing ceremony for the London Olympics that year, because you can't host the Olympics in London and not have a Beatle.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and he got paid a whole £1 from the Olympic organization for that because he donated his time. But I guess I guess they had to pay him something for tax reasons or something, so he got paid £1.
It was
Make your
symbolic.
bookkeeping simple. Yeah.
I mean, and at that point, he's just been kind of doing his thing. I mean, he's still doing events, teaming up with other artists. He's really good friends with Dave Grohl too.
Yep.
Dave Grohl's story. Yeah, he loves
on
meeting and getting to know the up and coming artists. Even now, I'm not going to talk about his venture with Kanye. That's whatever.
Yeah.
That was a misstep.
No, it was. Well, I mean, I have no idea if they were real or not because anything could be faked. But it was just funny seeing screenshots of tweets that supposedly were tweets. Yeah, they were saying like, "Oh man, who's this Paul McCartney? And he's so lucky to.
He's gonna go far.
He's gonna go far." Or just like, like I said, I don't know if those were real or if they were a spoof. Because who the heck knows anymore? But I was just like, if those are real,
it's like he's going to go far. He's gone far. We've been at this for 2 hours, and we're still only to the mid 2010s.
Going back to Dave Grohl, there's a clip from Graham Norton with Dave Grohl telling the story of how Paul McCartney gave his eldest daughter piano lessons. It is so cool.
Yeah, he loves new music, and likes to listen and find out about upcoming artists. So and obviously also still honoring the legacy that got him to this point. So obviously there was the big Beatles Ed Sullivan anniversary in 2014. So 64 when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. That was a big thing. He and Ringo were able to get together and do some things along with a bunch of their friends. He did the final concert at Candlestick Park in San Francisco before it got demolished. Funnily enough, was it Candlestick Park? Was it the show
I
Candlestick
think
Park?
so.
I believe so.
I think so. Yeah.
No, yeah, I
Yeah.
was thinking this documentary that I was watching. I can't remember. Was it Candlestick Park or one of the New York stadiums? I think it was the Candlestick Park concert.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep was at that concert.
Wow.
Yes.
Cool. Cool.
So that was cool. At the Beatles concert at Candlestick Park, not the pre-demolition concert. So she got to see the Beatles, like, you know, like right before they finished touring permanently. So he's released books. You know, he's released art. They've done in 2016 they released a collection called Pure McCartney.
Yep.
It's available on several different formats, including a 2 CD, 4 CD, 4 LP, and digital. The 4 CD version includes 67 tracks. Like I said, he appeared in Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales as Uncle Jack. So Keith Richards got to play Jack Sparrow's dad.
Paul
McCartney plays Jack's uncle.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
A surprise.
Yeah. He did a show at the Cavern Club in 2018. That was filmed and later broadcast by the BBC on Christmas Day in 2020. He released his 18th solo album, McCartney 3, in the 18th of December 2020. Again, books. He released a book called The Lyrics, 1956 to the present, in 2001.
That's a two volume set.
Yeah.
I don't have physical copy. I saved up enough gift cards so when the digital got slashed to a sticker shock price, I purchased it. And then of course the one thing I do walk into Barnes and Noble, they have a 50% off sale. I'm like, ooh, good. First thing on the door. We're sorry, but Paul McCartney's Lyrics is not part of the 50% off sale. I was like, dang it.
Killing me, Smalls.
Right, exactly. Because I was like, ooh, 50% off. I know what I'm getting. Guess not.
He is currently on tour, at least for a few more days. The Got Back tour actually runs until the 16th of June. So he'll have a nice little break this weekend for his birthday. And then he will be headlining the Glastonbury Festival next week.
Which he has done a couple of times. Yep.
Yeah, but this will make him the festival's oldest participant in its history.
Yep.
And still no sign of slowing down at all.
Yay.
It's crazy. It was so funny is I was laughing earlier and Chauncey's like, what's so funny? I'll have it linked in the show notes. The documentary I was watching where it's got Meryl Streep in it. She was talking about how she got to see the Beatles back in the 60s. And
was this the Tom Hanks one?
No, this is from 2002. So it ends with him and Heather getting ready to get married. And everybody's like, oh, it's so great he found love again. I'm like, oh, this marriage isn't gonna last, but yeah,
right, yeah. One of my college friends was thinking the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's nice, but yeah, but sorry, it's not gonna last very long. I'm like, yep, okay, yep, she called it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Heather is a nice enough person. Yeah, I like to think that she's a good mother to her and Paul's child. I just think that they were from way too separate universes. Yep. It's not necessarily age thing. I think it's just more they're where they are in life. It doesn't get mixed up. Nancy, I think, is better because she's older and has had more similar life experiences to him, so that they have more in common. So, but that's just me. I've never met either of them. I'm sure they're all nice women. So, but yeah, the documentary, it's from 2002, so it's quite a bit old, but there's a lot of archive footage, and there is a short clip of some BBC or whatever. The guy had a British accent, so some sort of reporter in 75. So Wings is on tour at this point now, doing bigger tours now that people know that, Paul McCartney's got a new band. And so they're doing like the bigger tours, not the college stuff. And the guy interviewing him is like, so you're what, like 31 now? And Paul's like, no, I'm 33. And the interviewer's like, 33, isn't that a bit old for rock and roll?
Dude.
I'm like, 33, is that a bit old? The band's turning 80 on Saturday.
Yeah. Ooh, that question did not hold up well. Open mouth, insert foot.
Yeah. I was like, no, not even close. I just thought that was so funny. He's like,
that poor interviewer, if he only knew then what he probably knows now, he wouldn't have asked that question.
What I love so much is, obviously I totally get that I'm from a place of privilege that not only have I got to see Paul once, but 4 times. There was a lady when I was standing in line for merchandise after the show, because we got to the stadium a little later than we would have liked. There was a lady behind me that had been waiting since I think she said like 1970 something to see Paul.
Wow.
Like she was going out with a guy at the time, and they were going to go, and then like he broke up with her, so she didn't get to go to the show, and she's been waiting ever since to see Paul live. And she is like in her 70s or something like that. So she was quite a bit older. So like I totally get that I'm not even 40 and I've had the chance to see Paul McCartney live 4 times. Because it's not, he's not cheap by any means.
No.
Worth every penny, but still not cheap. Tickets, and not easy necessarily to get either. I was on the Ticketmaster website when these went on sale, refreshing for close to an hour before it would let me select tickets, but it would not let me buy them because somebody else would buy them before I could actually hit purchase. So I'd have to go back and select 2 more tickets and then be like, sorry, those are sold. Ugh. So yeah, not an easy ticket to get, even if you got the money and the resources to go. Because like I said, I've only seen him in Indianapolis once. Every other show has been out of state. We ended up talking with a guy walking to the venue from where we'd had dinner. The guy drove from Denver.
Wow. Holy cow.
To Knoxville to see Paul.
Wowza.
Why he didn't go to any of the California shows, I don't know. Probably because the cost would have been outrageous. California's bad enough as it is.
Right.
So it was probably cheaper for him to drive from Denver. But still, honestly, he wanted to see Paul, hadn't had a chance.
Yeah.
Drove 2 days from Denver to Knoxville, Tennessee. Oh, and absolutely worth it because, there are the songs that you're going to hear. Your Live and Let Dies, your Let It Be's, your Hey Judes, and the Band on the Run. But what I love is because his catalog is so big, and Holly, you and I were talking about this actually.
Yes.
After the fact, because the show was over and there were people around me that were like, well, he didn't play yesterday or he didn't play, but I'm like, you know how it's not physically possible for him to do his entire catalog.
True.
It's just too big. But I love the fact, because it's so big, he can do things like do something random that you're not expecting, like a Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite.
Right.
Because you don't expect him to do songs that were not ones that he was the lead vocal on. Obviously, something like Something is different because he's doing that in tribute to George. But most of the, the Beatles related stuff that he does are songs that he was the lead vocalist for. But every now and then he will pull something random out and pop it in the set list. And I think it's really cool when he does stuff like this.
Oh,
and
I'm sure he wants to play different things. I mean, he'll play the old favorites that everybody loves, but mix it up a bit.
Oh yeah,
it keeps it fresh for him.
Yeah, it keeps it fresh for him. It keeps it fresh for the audience. It keeps it fresh for the other guys in the band that I'm sure could play the entire catalog frontwards, backwards, upside down, inside out with one hand tied behind their back. You'll give Dave that idea because he'd probably try it.
We try it, with a great big old huge grin on his face.
Yeah, he's like, hey, watch me try this. You want I saw her standing there with one hand tied behind my back? I will give you I saw her standing there with one hand tied behind my back.
You take a nose, Ringo?
Yeah. But I mean, even this show, because I want to make sure I mention this, and I will make sure to post the video on like our Facebook probably, because that's the best place to post something of that length. But because this is obviously post Let It Be, Get Back, Peter Jackson amazingness that we obviously have discussed on the podcast. I'll listen to that episode.
Oh yes.
But because Chauncey was rewatching bits of Get Back before we left for Knoxville. He's like, do you think he'll do Get Back when we see him? I'm like, well, yeah, obviously he's going to do Get Back. He does tend to do Get Back quite often. In the set list. I'm like, yeah, he'll do Get Back. Which he did. But he did I Have a Feeling, which is not
that's one of my favorite
unusual. It's not unusual for the set list. I've seen him do it before. Abe really likes the bit about letting your hair down because the man doesn't have any.
Hair, yeah.
He likes to acknowledge the fact that he does not have any hair, but if he did, he would definitely be letting it down. But going on this tour, I guess, I don't know exactly how it came about, but Peter Jackson got in touch with Paul and said, hey, because all the work we've done on this footage for the documentary, I can isolate John's vocals from the rooftop concert if you want them. Which he
Peter Jackson, man, you are a genius.
So we got to see Paul.
You were in front of me.
Yeah,
great
we
big
got
hug.
to see Paul perform I Got a Feeling with the footage, using the footage from the rooftop concert, but with John Lennon's isolated vocal. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. So essentially we got to see Paul perform with John again.
Chills.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. On a number of levels, obviously, because John's been gone for over 40 years now. But also because that rooftop concert was the last time the Beatles ever performed together in public.
Right.
So, in a way, it's bridging the gap from the people that just so happened to be on those streets in London that day and got to experience that to now the people who have watched Get Back and realize how special all that footage is. And then to have Peter Jackson be like, hey, Paul, you want to perform with John again? I can give it to you in a way. It's just like, and by that point, I was already trying to recover from the tears I cry every time Hey Jude starts. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
But the minute the words Hey Jude come out of his mouth, buckets. I just cry the entire time. Like, going into the show, I was like, Chauncey usually always has like tissue and stuff in his pockets because he's got horrible allergies. So I figured he was prepared. And I was like, you have Kleenex in your pockets, right? And he's like, yeah, do you need it? I was like, no, but I will. At some point, there will be tears. There'll be happy tears. There are going to be tears at some point. And the minute Hey Jude started, he didn't even really have to look at me or say anything. He just reached into his pocket and handed me a Kleenex.
Here, sweetie.
Yeah. So then when Paul came, that was at that point in the show. And then we get a little further into, this is towards the end of the show. And Paul's all like, hey, Pete, tell this story about, hey, Peter Jackson got a hold of me. He's like, hey, I can isolate John's vocals. And I'm like, holy crap. Is what gonna happen? Is anything gonna happen? And then and I had already gotten rid of the first tissue because I completely destroyed it. And Chauncey immediately is like handing me another one and getting one for himself. Because it was so wild. I was like, this is, with technology today, it's like, this is crazy that we're getting to see Paul and John essentially perform together. Yeah. Right. After, all this time
years,
apart.
Yeah.
So, okay. I gotta stop crying. I just wanted to make sure that I got to talk. I just wanted to make sure I got the chance to talk about that because it was just, it was like once in a lifetime experiences that it's like, I don't know.
When you were telling us about it, I was tearing up myself. I'm just like, oh my.
Yeah, I was like, you're gonna need tissues to watch this footage. Don't trust me.
And I cried. I will admit, as soon as that started, tears of joy were just going down my face. I was singing along. It was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, oh, Peter Jackson, I love you. I want to kick you at the same time.
Yes. We mean that in the most sincerest way possible, Peter.
Yes. It'll be a loving kick, but I'm still going to kick you.
It's just going to be a gentle little tap.
Yeah. It's all good.
Woo. Anyway. Yeah. Paul McCartney, 80, almost 80. Still at it, catalog as long as the day is, and so many
still adding to it.
Yeah, so many awards. He's been knighted, by the Queen. So you call him Sir Paul McCartney. He's got Kennedy Center honors. He's been in the He's been inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, both as a member of the Beatles and as a solo artist.
Yep. I can still remember when he got inducted in Stella's white tank top that they had to blur out.
Yeah. I'm surprised it might be on the longer list in Wikipedia. I was like, I'm surprised that he's not in the
Songwriters Hall of Fame yet.
The Songwriters Hall of Fame, like Elton John and Bernie Taupin are, but he might be in it. It's just not listed on the shortened version of the list I'm seeing. So but yeah, he's just 18 Grammy Awards.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
International treasure.
Several honorary doctorates from various universities. So In the Library of Congress. So yeah, he's still at it. He's still cranking it out. Huge discography. Film credits.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Pirates.
And and then he's also helped produce in the early 80s some British cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Rupert the Bear, I think, being one of them.
Mm-hmm. Appeared as himself
Mm-hmm.
on things like The Simpsons.
Yep.
He's been on Saturday Night Live a ton.
Uh-huh.
So he's in the Platinum Club for. Usually there's a running gag of for a while it was the 5-timers club, but folks that had hosted SNL at least 5 times. But now you've got folks like Steve Martin, who are in like the double digits, and then like Paul has been on SNL so many times that he's actually in it too, even though he's technically never hosted, I don't think. So
hey, usually you're with the host at the end of the show, so it counts.
Yeah. That is true. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of live shows, and like I said, he's still at it. The current tour not over for 3 more days. So it 2 hours plus 2.5 hours plus for shows. So it's just absolutely crazy. Not bad for a working class kid from Liverpool.
Not at all.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, if any of our listeners want to chime in on their favorite Paul McCartney songs or moments, or perhaps you've seen him live, as Rachel talked about, send us some feedback about that. Our email address is 5ishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is the5ishfangirls.com, to get links to our social media and our YouTube channel and all the places where you can download our podcast, and also ways to support us through Patreon and through our merch shop and other fine outlets that help us keep this podcast chugging along. And thank you for listening. Thank you for your support, your comments, your feedback, however it is you interact with us. We love you guys. And yeah, we'll be here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sorry, Bob.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany Belger saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
You know that SNL skit with Chris Farley, the Chris Farley Show?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. How Chris Farley is like fumbling all over himself. That would be me if I ever met Paul. That's assuming I was conscious. First, I would probably faint on the floor.
Yes. Smelling salts.
Yeah. And then I would turn into Chris Farley. It's funny. It's also true. Listening to the 5ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at the5ishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. no copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official 5ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at 5ishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.